Welcome to Bellman Woodworking and Designs with me, Brent Bellman. Today we're going to check out how to make some of these inside-out Christmas tree ornaments that you can turn on the lathe. So let's check it out and see how you can make one yourself.
Alright, so the first step for me was to joint all of these, and I bought all these pieces of wood from my local rockler, and these are in the turning section, and they're definitely all covered in wax. So just heads up when you're running across your joiner, your table saw, planer, that they're going to make things pretty messy. So there's some cleanup that you'll have to do afterwards. But that's a lesson I learned. But just a heads up for you, maybe I should run them all across the table saw first, but I really wanted to make sure they were going to be nice and even and flat for the glue up later on. So I jointed them, and planer didn't quite catch with all the wax, so I just jointed them and then ran across the table saw, but it worked out. As you can see here, I did put them on the table saw or on my sled, and I used that to get all the pieces the exact same size. I purposely bought wood that I thought I could turn into one ornament. So 2 pieces of wood, cut them in half, make that one ornament, just trying to be as cost effective as possible on that. So again, really take the time to make sure your pieces match up, make sure they're all the same size. You can't stress that enough because you're going to be gluing these up and turning them, and if they don't match up, then it's going to make your piece just not look right. So just really decide on what your measurements are and what you want it to be. So to start out to turn the inside of this, you'll definitely be putting these pieces together with double-sided tape, and then I found duct tape was enough on the outside here to hold them together. I tried some metal hose clamps, and that just seemed more dangerous on the lathe to me, so I ended up taking those off, but the duct tape worked well. I will say this, for me, the videos I watched, I didn't see a lot of people getting kickback when turning the inside, because what you're doing here is turning the inside of what'll be the inside of the ornament, but for me, when I turn this, I got a lot of kickback, so just beware of that. Also, before you take off the lathe, make sure to finish off the inside of your ornament, because that'll just tell it will look better on the inside there. Now, another comment here, because what you're doing is you've turned the outside and now you've reversed it to be the inside. Make sure your orientations are correct. You'll notice if they're not correct, the shapes won't match up, but just make sure your colors of wood, if you do different colors of wood like I did, make sure they match up the way you want. So you can see that's what I'm doing here is getting them all clamped up and really make sure these glue ups go well. That's going to be what matters in the end as far as them holding together and looking right. You want an ornament that is seamless and just looks like one solid piece all the way around. So really make sure you get those clamped up well. You can see I use those quick clamps. I thought that worked well to first hold it because I wanted to slide around a lot, and then put on the hard F clamp, put that on there and did that. So make sure to wipe out all your glue too. Okay, so at this point we've taken each of the halves we've glued up and then glued those 2 halves together to make one solid block. Something to mention here is make sure you allow for proper glue time, and I'll mention that later on, but give your glue whatever time the bottle says it needs to dry, otherwise it can cause your whole piece to break apart on the lathe. So again, we've made 2 halves, we then glued those 2 halves together, and then that gives us everything that we need to make one solid block. So you can see here I'm investigating that. I could see there that one of the seams wasn't perfect, so that's what I was telling you. You can't, don't rush that glue up process, and make sure that it's exactly where you want it to be and that it looks the way you want, because that final glue up is what's going to make that one solid block, and that's going to make everything look great and look awesome in the end.
We'll drill our hole here in the middle, be ready for the spur check there. I think that's what it's called. And we'll put on the lathe and be ready to go. Now I will say I've gone and tried to resharpen this here on my roughing gouge, and it feels pretty sharp to me. So this is Osage orange, and I'm pretty sure this is rosewood. I think that's what it was. But this Osage orange, I've been told, has a super, I don't know, it's one of the hardest woods out there. Whatever the hardness scale is, I don't know what it's called. This is supposed to have a really, it's supposed to be on the highest end. So I've tried to resharpen my gouge here because when I was cutting the insides of this, it was definitely giving me some kickback. So we'll see how it turns now on the outside since it's all glued up.
Alright, so at this point I've got it mounted on the lathe, and I'm just using the roughing gouge to get the whole thing down. You're going to see in this series of shots a couple different ornaments I worked on, but definitely depending on the wood you've got, just go slow, take your time, a little bit of time there. And you'll see there's not a lot of footage here of the actual, like the details I did, because this is more about how to put together this type of ornament, and so I want to Make sure you know that it's whatever you want, whatever details you want, but as far as the glue up process, how to cut the inside outside, that's all up to you. So that's why you're not going to see a lot here. But in the end, I do use this finish. This is called Deft. It is the clear gloss, and I did 3 coats, sanding in between each coat. And this is what my wife's grandfather's used, and it worked well for him. So great project. These were awesome ornaments. Try them out yourself. All right, so this was a very special project for me this year because my wife's grandfather used to be the one who every year at Christmas would turn Christmas ornaments for all the grandkids and great-grandkids in the family. Unfortunately, we did lose him this year back in March, but I wanted to be able to continue that tradition on for him, even though he's not here. It's something that I think he would be proud of, and after losing him, I was fortunate enough to inherit his tools. He was a big woodworker, and that's something he knew I was into, and I was very fortunate to be able to acquire those tools of his. So those exact same tools he would have been turning these ornaments on, and the exact same tools that I use this time. So it's very special for me to be able to make these ornaments and be able to hand them out to family members this year as Christmas presents, and just something I really enjoyed getting to do, getting to learn. This is really the first project that I've ever turned anything on a lathe besides just kind of fiddling around on some scrap wood. So for me, it was a neat project, a good project to learn on, definitely something very special. So anyhow, let's take a little bit of a closer look, and I'm about to show you 4 different ornaments that I turned and show you the final product on those. All right, so on this ornament, this is Osage orange and rosewood, or 2 different woods here. And again, all these, I just kind of went after a shape and just kind of, I guess like many people do on a lathe, I didn't really necessarily have an idea, but just kind of went after it. I will say, when you see in the videos, the further you cut in when you have that, your first block set up, you're cutting the inside, the wider you make the cut, the wider it's going to open up the inside out, this interior part of what ends up turning into the interior part of the ornament. So this one here, it turned out, in fact, really well in the color, the finish. This Osage orange, though, I was told, it's got one of the highest hardness ratings. It definitely, I feel like it gave my, tools a run for the money, definitely to make sure I kept them sharp. So that's the first one. Actually, this was technically the second one that I turned. The first one I turned here was this, and again, this is that Osage orange, and this one, I don't know how to say the wood here. It's called Shedua. I don't know if that's pronounced Shedua. I don't know. Who knows how you say that? Maybe someone can leave a phonetical comment down to the bottom down there. But again, so this was the very first one that I turned, and something that I learned after this one. Notice the top is bigger, the bottom is smaller. So this is where the burr was set up on this end down here. This was the kind of the receiving end on there. Plenty of y'all that have done lathe work out there know you can definitely flip things around. I didn't figure that out really until the very end. Well, not the very end. This is my third ornament here. We'll scoot these over here. And this one I really had figured out, I can cut one end down smaller and I can flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. But this one again, and again, this was a different wood. I forget the name of this wood here. But this is the rosewood again, and that rosewood has a really nice color to it. So these were the same. When you compare these two together, you can tell those are the same. But that rosewood is really neat. Something I did learn on the rosewood, though, when you add wood glue to it, it definitely turns the wood glue purple. That was kind of crazy. So make sure you are keeping your ornaments clean as you go when you do these. So again, to show off this one, so I did a little bit different, added some little details on there, made the interior, kind of trimmed it on the inside a little bit, but that's our final product. On this one, I goofed up on the glue up, and I wanted to have all these with this alternating color. But so something you have to be sure of when you're doing this is to not mix up your colors and make sure you know how it's oriented. Otherwise, you might have something like this that's going to end up being a half and half, but that's okay. It's still a neat looking ornament. Definitely wasn't going to waste it, so I think it still looks good. And then last, right now, and I do have one more to turn, but right now this is the last one I've got turned, and it's my favorite overall as far as the finish goes. All the lines are really tight on here. The glue up went really well, and part of that, again, getting that glue up well is just making sure you keep everything, joint all your pieces, plane if need be. But just, really work with that. But you can tell the wood's got a lot of good tones going on here to it.
again, the Osage orange here. And this is that Shedua, I don't know, however in the world you say it. It's that brown wood here again, but you have a great color. So definitely, happy with how this one turned out. I think this one's my favorite. And one thing to point out here, on this one I added a little end cap to it. So that's definitely gonna be the bottom, and this will be the top. I left it exposed there. It's kind of neat to see that. And on these I didn't. I just left them exposed here. So that's something you can do. It's kind of up to you how you want it to look. So when it's all said and done, so we can get them all lined up here in the shot. And again, what's fun about these is when you make them, it's all about your creativity, what you want to do. So there they are. That was really neat and a really cool project. So if you got a lathe, just get after it, try it. Just make sure your tools are sharpened. Make sure, if you're not sure how to sharpen tools, that you know how to do that. But I'll try to include some links in here also to some videos I think were helpful to me in getting my tools sharpened. All right, so again, here's these final products. This is the last one I've turned, so this is number 4 in the order, going all the way back to number 1 in the order, and definitely each one of these taught me something from beginning to end. So again, I just want to encourage you to get out there, somehow find a way to get your hands on a lathe. It's really neat, really satisfying that you can start with, a block of wood or a couple of blocks of wood glued together and turn something down into a shape that you've created. So neat process there, and overall fairly quick. I will say one of the tips I learned in this process is give your wood time to glue. And the process, I believe it was this ornament here, I had my block glued up to start turning the outside, and I probably only gave it an hour or two to dry. I thought, oh, that'll be good enough. And about 3/4 of the way to turning the final shape of this, when it caught this, one of these chunks here of the lighter color wood just completely flew out, and luckily it did not wreck the entire ornament. I was able to put it back in and glue it in, and it was safe. So just keep that in mind, allow proper glue time when you're doing these, and you'll be in good shape. So again, cool project. Hopefully it's something you can jump into, and I definitely look forward to doing more of these next year when Christmas rolls around. So hopefully I've inspired you for your next project. Don't forget, if you like this video, you can click that subscribe button down below to hear more videos from me. I know it's been a super long time. I'm going to try to be pushing some more videos out there to you guys. So click that subscribe button, click that like button, and if you want to, also include a link to my Patreon that's on there, and you can check me out there as well. So until next time, be safe, keep learning, keep building.